here's my tip for the lab time. I have suggested that we know many equations. We know an equation, well, no, not really an equation. We just know what that spot is. Can you tell me, what is that spot? It's 2. 2 what's? Units are important. Meters. Why does it have to be meters? You get if you use, sometimes you use meters, sometimes you use inches, sometimes you use minutes, sometimes you use hours. Your problems won't work out. You have to be consistent. Okay? So we are using meters in this whole thing, especially because the beginning of our formula has a negative 4.9 in it, which is meters. So what is that again? That has to do with gravity. And then it's either t squared, I've been using x squared. And then there was plus bx, and then b was some mystery number. What the heck is b again?
Velocity.
The velocity. And not just the velocity, the starting velocity. All right, so what letter is that spot right there? In this equation, what letter is that? Yeah, it's C, because it's the y-intercept because x is 0. All right. Then there's an equation for this, which I gave you yesterday, and if you don't know, you can come up and ask me things like that. Like, what equation do you use for that again? There's an equation for that. And then there's also an equation for this, which again, I'm not going to give you right now, but you should know the equation for that. Would you agree that's x-intercept? Okay, and so there's an important equation you know involving that. All right, then each of these spots, we know this spot, and we know that spot. What do you mean we know that spot? Well, because what's across the bottom here? What is this whole thing?
Time.
This is time. Don't you know the time? Yeah, because you threw the ball up in the air and it's all about the time. Okay, so you should know a personal time for your ball that was in the air. And so hopefully this spot you'll realize is key. All right. And yeah, you want this, but to get the vertex, it's easy. You just need to know B and A, and we already know A. So you're going to be trying to figure out B. But don't try to figure it out right there, because you don't know that spot. You don't know what time it hit the vertex, and you don't know how high it was. You don't know either thing. So don't chase after that. Use this spot and figure out B. All right. Now, this is one of those painful times for the teacher, because it'd be so much easier if I just told you how to do it. You know what I mean? I can just tell you how to do it, and I can go over with, and nobody'd have questions, okay? But this is the part where you're supposed to, like, try to figure out a hard question, all right? And it's not even that hard, but it's hard enough that a lot of kids are going to be stuck. So understand, if you walk up, I'm not just going to tell you how to do it. That'd be the easy way. That'd be the easy route for me, and it would help you zero. You wouldn't actually have the struggle of thinking through a hard question and figuring it out for yourself. Now, I do allow kids to work with other people, because my philosophy on that is you're going to have kids who are going to talk to other kids at home, whether I say it's okay or not. And I don't want to penalize the honest kids who are going to be like, he said, I can't ask, so I'm not going to ask anybody else. Meanwhile, other kids are just talking up and like giving all the answers to each other. So I think it's only fair to not penalize the honest people. You can talk to other people about this. Solely okay. Say, how did you do it? That's okay. But you cannot ask me to check, did I do it right? No, everybody'd like me to pre-check their lab and tell them if they did it right. No, I can't do that. You can ask me other things like, is this an equation that I'd use for this spot? Or is this, what equation should I use for that? You can ask me things, but just understand I may not be able to answer it, because it might be just the key thing that you have to figure out. Okay, enough about the lab. Next thing I am going to do is grade the 10-step thing. And so I am going to hand them out. I'm going to pause the video, and then I'm going to click back on to record the grading of the 10-step sheet. Okay, so this is grading that 10-step sheet. And the whole point of this is just to remind you and kind of show you how important it is to have shown the work, okay? Because you could get the answers wrong and still get 8 out of 10 on this. And that's how the how the AP tests work when it comes to the free response. You don't have to have the answer right to get most of the points. All right, so let's actually go through that first one. Mariam, would you read me number 1? I know it's kind of long, but I think you can handle it. Yep. absolute value.
3x minus 5, absolute value, equal, or negative,
Oh, minus something.
yeah, minus 8 equals 4.
Okay, so there's the problem. Now, the first step that they should do, would you guys agree, is add 8 to both sides. Then, if they did that and got the correct answer for it, to absolute value, 3x minus 5 equals 12, then they can get plus 1 for doing the right step. But this is the weird part. What if they made a mistake and they just brain farted and went and they subtracted those by accident, or they got 10 instead of 12? Then they wouldn't get penalized here. They'd get penalized because the answer won't be right at the end. If they did the right step, then they get the plus 1. If they made a mistake, you can't, otherwise, from here on, they get it wrong, and they'd lose like 7 points on the problem. Just because of one oops. That's not how they do it. So let's say you're the kid where the kid did make a mistake and they have 10 here instead of 12. You don't do minus 1 here. At the end, the answer will be wrong, and they'll get minus 1 there. Do you get what I'm saying? And now you'd have to follow it through, and when I divide everything by 2, your kid would have had 10 divided by 2 is 5. You see what I mean? But the right actual answer is they should have had a 12 there, so that when they divide by 2, the answer is actually 6. So they should show this divide by 2, and that's worth plus 1. And now they got 3x minus 5 is equal to 12 divided by 2 is 6. Okay. Next one they can get plus 1 for is the split. They should have 3x minus 5 equals something, and 3x minus 5 again equals something. The first one that they do is 6. Now, some kids do the negative on that side, and that's fine. But this is really critical. They had to have negative 6 over here. Or some kids just learned from me yesterday that you could have made these two negative instead. That is an okay way to do it. If they did that, they got plus 1 for doing the split right. So far, they have earned 3 points, and they haven't even got close to the answer yet. You get what I'm saying? It's just about, are they taking the next logical step? Okay, next, I'm going to add 5 to both, or everything, and that's going to happen all the way across, and that's worth plus 1. And then they have 3x equals 6 plus 5 is 11, and 3x equals negative 1. I could very easily see a kid making a mistake right here, but as long as they had added 5 to everything, that's not going to hurt them until the very end. At the very end, the answer will be wrong. They'll lose their point then. Yes?
If they don't show like all the plus 5s,
Then they aren't gathering points for that. Do you see what I'm saying? They didn't show their work, so you can't give them the plus 1. All right. So you're trying to give them as many points as you can, but if they didn't show it, you can't give it to them. All right. Because I could see a kid just skipping over a whole bunch of work and then saying, I've got the answer. Then you missed the point. You were trying to show as much work as you could to gain points. So far, the kid could have 4 points, and we haven't even got to the answer yet. See what I'm saying? All right. 5th point is to divide by 3. If you didn't show that, it's not like they get minus 1. They just don't get a point added for showing a step. If they did divide by 3 everywhere and got x equals 11 thirds, then now we can start looking at answers. Negative 1 third. And I get some people that left that off. They just didn't show the divide by 3.
so they have to.
Then they don't get plus 1 for that step because they didn't show work right there.
They have to write the divide by 3 4 times. Okay.
Yep. 4 times, I could understand if they did one on the left and one on the left equation, one on the right equation. That would be super picky, but if they don't show the work of the step, that's the point. You don't get points if you don't show the work. And then, how many points do we have so far? 5. Then what's the last 1 point for? The actual answers. Those are the answers. And that's worth plus 1. So do you get they could have gotten 6 points here. But if they didn't show as much work, they might have only gotten 5.
Plus 1 on each or plus 1?
Nope, 1 total. Now, what if one of the 2 wrong answers is wrong? Then they can have half of a point because one part of their answer is right, one part's wrong. They can have plus a half. Yes?
For the divided by 3, if they used to divide by 3 for one of them and then not for the other one, is that a half?
That's a half a point then, yep. All right. So you're trying to get as many points from the greater as you can. And you're therefore trying to show as much work as you can. And do you get that on this system, you could get 5 points with a wrong answer? See, that's how it's different. And I know some of you are going to be annoyed, like, well, I didn't know I had to show the work. It's the whole point of this worksheet. Okay, so moving on to question 2. So far, we've got 6 points. So that means there's 4 points left for problem 2. But problem 2 is a little weird because it ends up having no solution for the answer. But there's a lot of ways to get points. Nick Patz, would you read me number 2?
6, absolute value 2, parentheses, x minus 4, absolute value plus 10 equals 0.
All right. Now, would you agree that subtracting 10 is a good first step? So then they get plus 1 for that. Okay. So now we got 6, absolute value, 2 parentheses, x minus 4, absolute value equals negative 10. And at that moment, if you're smart enough to go, wait a minute, this is an absolute value that's coming out to a negative. Is that even possible? No. But if they don't show anything and they just say no solution, they're only getting 1 point plus another 1 point for the, that is true that there's no solution, but you have to show work about why. Okay, now how can I prove to you that there's no solution or that there are solutions but they're extraneous? Just listen to my how you could show it. There's multiple ways. One way is to draw a picture. I strongly recommend this, and if you don't get what I'm doing, watch and learn. This is a graph. This is a left side of a V. The V shape has been moved 4 to the right and it's been stretched. But if you move a V shape 4 to the right and then you stretch it, no matter how you stretch that, you make it really narrow or you make it really wide, it's a V shape. The other side of it is a negative 10, and that's down here somewhere. Do you get they will never cross? That right there is proof enough. I will give you 2 points for that because you just showed me without a shadow of a doubt that this thing can't have an answer and that you proved it. So that's plus 2 points of work right this way. Plus 2 points of work right there. Now I get some people didn't draw anything. That's fine. They might get their work another way. You can get points for something else, which is going a different route. Now, do you get the kid who went that route? They do have to end with, they never have said that there was no solution. That's how you'd have to end, and you're going to get 1 point for saying no solution, or that there's extraneous solutions. So that's how you could have got your 4 points if you went that way. But I get, at this moment, a lot of kids thought, well, I better keep charging ahead, and I'm going to divide everything by 6. And then, that's fine, you can do that, but it's going to get gross. And now, 2x minus 4 equals 10/6 is the same as 5/3 and is negative. And again, I hope at that moment the kid would have gone, wait a minute, it's an absolute value equaling a negative. That's not possible, and draw the picture for me, because it would have been much, much easier. And again, they could get all the points by doing it that way. But I think some people went and solved this whole thing, and I'm going to just skip a whole bunch of steps. If you got it down to the 2 answers, what's key is, it is, what was it again, 19/5 was it? 6, thank you. And what was the other answer?
29/6.
29/6. Getting to those answers is worth a point. Just 1 point though, because they're doing a lot of work they didn't have to do. But if they leave it that way, they've only got 1 point for this first step, and then 1 point for a whole bunch of steps to get to 19/6. But then they have to recognize that they don't actually work. Some people think those are the answers, and they're wrong, and they deserve to lose that point. So if they stopped right here, you'd go -1. They're extraneous. If the kid actually did identify them as extraneous, they'd have to show why they were extraneous. See, it's a lot harder than the picture. That would have been a lot easier way. But if they then show work to show that this doesn't work, that would have to go back in the equation to show that that doesn't work and that 19/6 is extraneous. You'd have to show that work, otherwise you don't get that 1 point. So it was 1 point for starting right, and then 1 point for taking and getting these answers, and then 1 point for showing how they don't work, and then 1 point for the actual answers, which are no solution or extraneous. Yes.
Hypothetically,
Let me ask you questions. Did your person add 10 or subtract 10 to start with?
yes,
Okay, so they got 1 point.
yes.
Did your person then get, show some work to get 19.6 and 29.6?
No, they drew a graph, but they didn't put the line at -10.
Okay, so they get 2 points for if they drew it correctly like this, they get 2 points for that.
Okay, so, but they drew the V, but they didn't do that.
Oh, so they don't have the whole graph.
No, they don't have the whole graph.
Okay.
So they do a half point.
I guess I could give them plus a half of a point. I'll take care of this. Thank you. All right, so other people, and walk me through, did your person start with adding or subtracting 10?
Yes.
Okay. Did they then draw a picture?
No.
Okay. Did they then go further and get it to 19.6 and 29.6?
No.
Okay. So they're only getting 1 point for starting, and apparently, did they ever say no solution?
Yes. And
Okay.
they verbally explained that.
Okay, now tell me the verbal explanation. I'll judge whether or not it's good enough.
Absolute values can't equal negative numbers.
That's not really proof enough, but I will give them 1 point for starting right. I'll give them 1 point for the right answer, which is 2 of the 4 points. And then I'm going to only give them 1 more point for their explanation. So they'll get 3 out of 4 on that last question. Yes?
Would they lose a point if they did insert those two answers into the equation? Test if it's.
Yes, if they did not, well, think of it this way. They can't get the credit for the +1. They don't get this +1 for showing how they're extraneous. Okay, so they'd only get 3 out of 4 on that point because they didn't earn enough points.
4 points?
Yes, yes, because it was 6 points for the first problem and 4 points for the second problem. Yes,
What does D and E mean?
D&E means does not exist, and that's if they have everything else right, that's how they were saying no solution. Yes,
Wait, so it's 2 points if you have the graph, and 4 points if you did not. Correct.
2 points for the graph, 1 point for this step. Do they have all of those? Okay. And then it was 2 different routes. So your route to get all 4 points, they'd have to start with this step. And the next point that they got would have been solving it down to this. No, wait, sorry. The next step was to get these. Did they have those? Okay. So then they only get 1 point out of the 4 points possible in this problem. Okay? Yes?
So they have like the graph, but they don't have the -10, but then they also show.
Okay, wait, one thing at a time. Then they can have +1/2 for having only graphed the V, because the whole point is that the V and the other line don't intersect. Okay?
And then they also have like it equals 19.6 and equals 29.6.
Okay, and did they end with that, or did they cross them off and say extraneous?
I mean, they like X'd it out.
Okay, but they didn't show why they were extraneous? Okay, so then really they have the right answer, but not work that supports it. So they get 1/2 of a point for showing me the graph, and 1 point for having the right answer, but no support for it. So it's out of 4 total. Any other questions? Yes? Does not exist. Any other questions? Yes?
Should we write the score out of 10 at the top?
Yes, it's definitely out of 10 at the top. And then one more thing, I would like you at the bottom of the page, everybody listen please, at the bottom of the page, put CB and your name at the bottom of the page. I don't want to be confused on what paper it is. CB stands for corrected by, and then your name. That way, they can walk around and go, okay, I just try to keep mental note of who hands your paper back to you. But if you have a question, the first person you have to talk to is them, because they graded it. And if it says -1, I might not know why they marked -1, but they will. They just graded it. Okay? So you can ask them, give them a second to think about why they marked that wrong. And if you both agree that it's not actually wrong, cool, change your score. But if there's she marked it wrong, and she thinks it's wrong, and I don't think it's wrong, I can be the final deciding point. Okay, so we have graded that now with a score on the top. Get it back to the owner and try to remember who handed it to you. Herbst is wearing the gray t-shirt over there.
Would you let this count as no real solution, or no solution?
Pausing for a second. So for the rest of the hour, we just graded that little quiz in class. If you're absent for grading that quiz, then I recommend that you just email it to me directly and I can grade it for you. And then after that, we had some lab work time. That's all I got for the video for today.